Tonight, what do Wonder Woman and Huey Lewis in the News have in common? That's right, they both believe in the power of love. Robin visits Dinosaur Island and does not, I repeat, does not punch a single dinosaur. I'm so disappointed. And Martian Manhunter delivers a twist for the ages. That's right, John Jones is actually Kaiser Soze. All that and more tonight on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 246 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and what am I even supposed to say? Come on. For anyone who doesn't know, we are breathing down the end of this show. We are like inches away from it, but we're not quite there yet. This is still just a normal average week, all things considered. But all I want to do is talk about the end. Call me an apocalyptic preacher. I just want to get up here and say the end is nigh. For the love of God, repent, you sinners. But I can't do that because I'm just going to be doing that all of next episode anyway. So I guess we'll just treat this like any other week for me to say we only got 10 comics. It's barely anything. It's a fart in the wind. We can just go ahead and breeze right past it. So let me tell you what we got coming out this week. This week we have, in roughly alphabetical order, Aquaman, Dr. Fate, Harley Quinn, Martian Manhunter, Poison Ivy, Cycle of Life and Death, Robin, Son of Batman, Sinestro, Superman / Wonder Woman, Titans Hunt, and Wonder Woman. Out of that, the important ones are, of course, Superman, Wonder Woman, which is the next part of the Final Days of Superman storyline. Maybe a last issue, depending on how you want to define last issue. And then we have the final issues of Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, Sinestro, Titans Hunt, and Wonder Woman, all outside of that. So yeah, a lot of big wrap-ups, a lot of big endings. If you've been tuning into anything, by all means, check to see how they end. There's a lot of weird things this week. I'll say that much. I don't want to spoil too much because it's endings. You don't want to hear the ending spoiled before I even talk about the comics. So yeah, all that's going on. Like I said, don't want to harp too much on the ending of the show thing until next week. So we'll just go ahead and jump right on into, I guess, Final Days of Superman. Superman Wonder Woman number 29, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Jorge Jimenez. So last issue, I believe, was Action Comics. We got introduced to the post-crisis Superman that is now in our continuity. He's the one who has the son John. They all met up together, all three of them, and then Solar Superman and New 52 Superman are having a face-off. So we open up with that. Batman and Wonder Woman are by his sides. And he's flaring up. He's like, oh, yeah, you're here to invite me to the Justice League? And they're like, no, you suck. Why would we ever do that? Like, you need to calm down so that we can talk to you and, like, not have to punch you into submission. He's like, I don't know. There's a lot of Superman running around, and I don't think this Superman's getting the proper respect. So the Solar Superman flares up, and we see Lois, New 52 Lois, stumbles out of the woods, and it's just like, Clark, get out of there. He's too dangerous. So he fires off a shot over at Lois. New 52 Superman jumps in, tanks the hit, and he's like, hey, Lois, so cool you're here. You need to leave. We're in the middle of a thing here. And he keeps on firing off shots. Wonder Woman comes and runs interference, and Superman turns to Batman like, hey, look, you got to get her out of here. She's a civilian. I cannot deal with her being in the middle of all of this. I need to know she's safe, so please go. And he basically tells her, look, you've got a story to write about my life, and I need you to do that. I need you to be out of here to do that. So they keep on throwing punches at Solar Superman, that's New 52 Superman and Wonder Woman, and Batman takes Lois, gets her in the Batjet, and takes off. Fight basically continues on with Wonder Woman throwing punches. Superman throws a giant boulder. But then we cut over to post-crisis Superman, who, when we last saw, took his son and wife, also their dog and cat, who are mysteriously absent at this point, but whatever. And Lois is like, hey, we set up a safe house, like, still in California, still near our house. We are well past that, so where are we going? And Clark's like, we can't deal with a normal safe house. We're taking you to a fortress. And we see that, of course, he has his fortress somewhere in the Himalayas, and he opens it up. He scans his eye in, and as John walks in, John's like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. So I guess this does take place after the reveal. John goes and looks around, and Lois is like, so, hey, you never told me about this place. What's that all? You lied to me. And he's like, I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you the whole truth. And she's like, yeah, you think that one's going to fly? Basically, he's like, look, the safe house is a safe house, but it's a place that you and John could get to without me. This is a place that only I have the ability to get to, and because of that, you are fundamentally safe here. There is nothing that is going to be able to get you here, so, like, you're fine. This will be our absolute bunker until all this goes over. And John's looking around. He's like saying, oh man, there's like robots and stuff. This is so neat. And he looks up at the statue of Jor-El and Lara, and he's like, oh, who are those people? And Superman's like, all right, we got a lot to talk about. So we cut back over to Lois, who's trying to call into Perry, telling him, like, hold the first edition. I got some crazy stories. I just need time to write it. And Batman cuts off the cell signal and just like, no, this is my bad jet. I'm not letting you call in people because we're trying to get you away from that fight. And he ends up just dropping her off at some random gas station that I guess was far enough away that she wouldn't be a part of the fight. However, as soon as Batman's gone, she hops back on her phone and is just like, I am looking to hire a helicopter. I will pay triple the rate. I need to get back in there. So back over at the fight, Solar Superman just keeps on getting up. New 52 Superman and Wonder Woman keep punching him as hard as they can, doing whatever they're possible. Eventually, they manage to knock him out of his solar form, and he turns back into a dude, and he's like, oh, my name's Denny Swan. I'm from Minnesota. I was in the state penitentiary, and Superman and Wonder Woman are like, oh, okay, all right, he is just a normal dude. How do we save him? What do we do? And Wonder Woman's like, I don't know. He might only have a few minutes before he goes back to full power. And then right then, boom, back to full power. He's like, nope, you guys are screwed. So he fires off like a mini solar flare attack. Superman and Wonder Woman are left down on their asses. And Solar Superman grabs Clark and flies him up into the sky. Meanwhile, in National City, we left Supergirl over in some previous issue. She was getting treatment from the DEO for loss of her powers, and so she's about to undergo some sort of solar radiation or something like that, when all of a sudden there's a delay, and she's like, what's going on? And they say, well, there's power fluctuations because of something going on, some metahuman fight out in California. Don't worry about it. As soon as it passes, we'll start it back up. And she's like, which metahumans? And he's like, too hard to tell, but like one of them is probably Superman. To which she grabs her cape and is just like, look, I'm here of my own volition. I want to go deal with that. Open up the door. And she flies off to go deal with it. But yeah, final page is just Solar Superman, who's looking more and more demonic every time that we see him. He's flying up into the either outer atmosphere or the Himalayas. It's hard to tell because it looks spacey in the background, but I also see mountains. And he's like, oh, well, maybe you'll finally see that I'm the true Superman. And that's the issue. I do like the fact of how they pivot the story in order to make it just specifically Superman, Wonder Woman. They just say, like, Batman, hey, you were cool when we were all teaming up together for our own thing, but this is now a Superman, Wonder Woman book, so get out of here. Beyond that, I mean, yeah, it feels like it's building. It feels like it's a big final. Of course, next week's the final chapter, so kudos on that. I like the issue. I don't think I really have anything bad to say about the issue overall, but it does feel very penultimate. It feels very much of the idea of like, we're just getting the pieces together. Of course, Lois is going to show back up to the fight. Supergirl's going to be there. Post-Crisis Superman's probably going to head back at some point. So we just have all the pieces ready for wherever the final standoff's going to be. So I'm down. I'm ready for it. I think that's going to be over in Superman, if I remember correctly. So... and then as for this book, there are a few more issues. Technically, there were none that were released in individual issue format. This is the last one that was released like to comic shops. But there were 2 more issues that were basically meant to fill in the gap between Savage Dawn and this event, the Final Days of Superman. And those are included in the trade. So I'll be covering those at some point. As for issue rating... I'm going to say 7.5. it's almost at the 8. It's almost there. I think I could have used just a little bit more development with Clark and Diana. They're so stuck in the fight. I think I wanted there to be just a little bit more relationship stuff there. Whatever it would have taken. Like, I don't care if it would have been like, you know, just Diana being like, you're dying, back off, I'll handle this. Like, something small like that. But it's just not here. So, it's okay. It's good. It's just not quite at that great level for me. Titans Hunt number 8, written by Dan Abnett, art by Paul Pelletier. So, final issue of the series. Last issue, what were the name of those things? I can't even remember them. They were something that Omen hired to be able to take out Diablo. That was it. They were dealt with. Everyone's on their way to deal with Mr. Twister. Everyone's following the song, so we're doing that. We open up this issue with Dick Grayson basically saying, once upon a time, we were Titans, we were Teen Titans, and we fought against Mr. Twister, and something happened, and we realized the only way to defeat him was to forget our memories of being Teen Titans. And we did that, and we won, and fair enough. So, yeah, we see everyone is making their way there. Arsenal, Lilith, Hawk, Dove, a couple other ones. They're all heading down there. And as they are approaching the base of the mountain, they're just like, all right, so why are we coming here if this is all part of the plan? And like Omen specifically is just like, we shouldn't be here, guys. This is a bad idea. To which Hawk, I think, is like, nah, we're just going to beat him up a little bit. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. So up on top of the tower, whatever you want to call it, they're all facing down Mr. Twister. They're just like, all right, what do you want? Like, what is this even all about? We don't even know the plan here. And he's like, oh, there are 4 of you here. I hear 6 more on the way. And once you're all here, then I get to launch my plan. And he tells Harold to play another song. He's like, no, I'm Malcolm Duncan. Screw you. I'm not doing that. So they talk about how Mammoth is being used as his muscle back when they beat him up in like 2 issues ago. And now that Mammoth is taken out, Mr. Twister doesn't actually have a physical form. So he can't actually do much of anything. So all of the physical tasks are completely beyond him. Theoretically, they could just like walk away. They could leave now. We then see Mr. Twister like, nope, I've already got my hands inside his mind. He's not able to resist that. And so he pushes him out to go back over to the organ, whatever it is that he's playing. And then all of a sudden, his pregnant wife, Karen, comes in and says, hey, honey, you can resist this. Don't worry about it. And then she energy blasts Mr. Twister from the palm of her hand. He goes flying backwards and just like, oh, all right, well, I don't even know who you are, but sure, if you're here, that'll work too. And Malcolm's like, oh, how did you find us? Like, oh, that. And they have a little romantic moment there. But Dick Grayson's over in the background going, guys, she just blasted Mr. Twister. That means he has a physical form. Let's kick his ass. And they just jump in and start trying to punch the ever-loving shit out of him. And eventually he's like, all right, you know what? Yeah, you can punch me. You can do whatever. But the closer all 10 of you get here, the more power I have. And they're like practically right over the ridge. So I'm hyper powerful right now. He blasts them all with lightning. And then he takes an arrow to the neck. And we see then the rest of them join in. They're all trying to join the fight. And he's like, nope. I'm not doing this. I'm stopping this before it starts. So he electrifies all of them. He's now at almost full power. And as he zaps them all down to their knees, he grabs hold of Malcolm and says, all right, now it is time for the feeding. You're going to sing the door open. And I can't even remember if this was said in a previous issue. Maybe it was. But he's just trying to open a portal to like a hellscape demon thing that's going to destroy the world. So he's like, yep, you guys are going to act as the first course. He's very hungry, and then he will feed on the rest of them. So Mal sings a song. It opens a giant portal in the sky. And they do explain why it had to be the Teen Titans. Apparently, the demon god thing that they're summoning is not able to eat that much power. At first, he needs to like build up to it. And so he's like, yeah, I could like bring out the Justice League and the God Slayers and all that sort of, the Green Lantern Corps, but it needs something small just to get him in the door, just to get him to cross the barrier. And you guys are exactly that. You guys are not quite that powerful, but you're just enough. So that's why you Teen Titans are here, just basically as the appetizer. And as he explains the entire rest of the fight, saying like, yeah, you guys are sidekicks. You're junior. You're not worth anything at all. And Lilith brings up the point of like, look, that's the way that we succeeded before, is that the only reason that we were appetizing as a group, as a collective here, is that we remembered our identity as Teen Titans. Once we forgot that, he wasn't able to entice it as like a power team, as a super team. That's why we dropped the moniker. That's what we forgot. And you see the creatures coming through the portal, and Dick Grayson's like, hold on, we're still not a team. Like, we weren't those people that we were before. And he's like, oh, what the hell are you talking about? You're still Robin. That's still Wonder Girl. They're Speedy. And he's like, no, I'm Nightwing. And Arsenal's like, no, I'm Arsenal. I'm not Speedy. Goes over to Aqualad, and he's like, I'm not Aqualad. I'm Garth. I don't even have a name. And they each say, like, yeah, none of us are the same people. Like, all of us have changed. Lilith is not Omen. She's Lilith. Narc is no longer Cave Boy. Dawn Granger isn't Dawn, the previous Dove. Like, all of them are different. And Twitcher's like, all right, you know what? In terms of contract law, yeah, you may have had a way out there. Except we still got Hank Hall as Hawk. And he hasn't changed. And he still's running the same identity. And as long as one of you is exactly the same, screw you. I still get to be able to do this. So he takes like full possession of Hank, and they're just like, oh no, you can't take us down. We're not the Teen Titans. We're just Titans. We're different. We're better now. We're not sidekicks. And he's like, whatever, I don't care. I still have Hawk. And then Dove's trying to snap him out of it. He has a vision of his brother, Don, the original Dove, and he's like, Hank, you can fight this. You can beat it. And then Hawk suddenly snaps out of it, and he's like, you killed my brother. That's right. I remember. We're done now. And so he jumps up, starts slashing at Mr. Twister. Everyone else joins in the fight. It's a whole out brawl, and eventually Malcolm goes over to the organ, and he's like, what do I do? The portal's open. The thing's coming through. How do we stop it? And he's like, I don't know. Sing backwards? Sing something else? Do whatever. So he sings, I guess, the song that he's known for, that at the beginning of the book he was getting an, what is it, Grammy? I think that's it. Getting a Grammy for. And as he's doing that, Lilith is also there using her psychic abilities to basically tell the demon god, like, there's no food here. You do not have this is my own private domicile, and I shall not be attacked. And so Mr. Twister tries to stop her, and then Narc comes in, grabs Mr. Twister and says, screw you, man. Here's an offering to your god, and throws Mr. Twister into the portal. Whole thing explodes, big flash of light. And everyone's like, okay, all right, that worked. We're all free. Mr. Twister's gone. And Karen, Malcolm Duncan's wife, is like, hey, honey, that was great and all, but we need to get to a hospital. And he's like, oh, don't worry, I'm not that hurt. And she's like, no, we need to get to a hospital. And he's like, oh, God, the baby's coming. Oh, Jesus. Who can fly? Anyone? So we cut to later. They're down at the diner. We see that cop from like issue 1 is like, hey, is everything cool? Is everything safe? And he's like, yeah, your town is safe now. Don't worry about it. And Arsenal's like, has it? Like, who's to stop the portal from reopening again? And Lil's like, yeah, it's cast out, but it's not gone forever. We have to stay vigilant. We have to remain a team and protect ourselves and all that. So yeah, Arsenal basically puts forward, yeah, well, why not? Let's be a team. Let's do that. By the way, Donna Troy, my name's Roy Harper. How's it going? You and I maybe have a little something going on here. So Dick comes back over the table. He's like, I talked to Malcolm. Baby's fine. It's super great, all that stuff. And yeah, they're talking about formalizing the team, and Garth is even in on it, just like, yeah, you know, it felt right. Felt good. I have no problem with that. But Nightwing's like, hold on. Wait a minute. There were 10 of us back in the day. And there were 10 of us now here today. And the new Dove replaced the old Dove. Like, that one was an easy switch out. No problem there. But Karen just showed up, and she was the 10th member. Who was she replacing from the original team? To which point the officer says, hey, guys, you might want to hunker down a little bit. There's a storm going on outside. And they're like, is it a twister? And then he's like, nope, it's just a regular storm. But boy, does it sure have a lot of thunder and lightning. It's Wally West. Of course, it's Wally West. That's exactly what Rebirth does. It's Wally West. I'm just going to spoil that straight up and out. That's Wally West. So, yeah. Also, something interesting in this trade for Titans Hunt is they show pencil work that shows Wally West was like not originally intended to be. This was obviously thrown on top of the pre-existing art, but it shows Wally like building the tower and whatnot, and he's just like stuck in the Speed Force and no one can see him. It's interesting. It's a funny little thing to have there. Yeah, it's look. I appreciate the idea that they're going for here, that like, oh, we're not the same people we were before. We've grown. We've taken on different identities and all that. I don't know. I just don't feel like an elder god would give a shit, you know? Like, oh, you call yourself Nightwing now. All right. I'm still going to eat you. Like, it doesn't seem to make that much of a difference. If it were doing something instead of the idea of just like, you know, Garth was never Aqualad. Donna Troy was never Wonder Girl. Arsenal was never Speedy. I don't actually know if that one's true, but like playing with the idea, the continuity changed, and like Mr. Twister has this false memory of how things were. Maybe. I don't know. I feel like that might be playing a little bit too much, but I don't know. The way that it's just saying that, oh, because we've taken on different names, it doesn't matter anymore. It's fine though. It just comes to a good point of, oh, we're no longer the Teen Titans. We're just Titans. Cool. Good. Glad you'd have that. Beyond that, I'm gonna say, I'll say 7. It's I want to say like a 7.5 just for that ending, just for the thing of like, oh, but there's one more mystery. But like 10 years on now, like we all know what the answer was. Literally the next week after this book came out, we knew what the answer was. So in rereading it after the fact, it's okay. It's fine. It's just 7. Wonder Woman number 52, written by Meredith Finch, art by Miguel Mendonça. I thought for sure we were saving this final issue for David Finch, but guess he was busy. So last issue, we had Hera and Wonder Woman having a talk, basically saying like, yeah, we're on the same side. Hecate is evil. Why would you think she's not? She clearly is just lying about everything here. And then when we get back to Olympus, we find out that Zola has died. We open up this issue by saying, Wonder Woman's like, is she dead? And Apollo's like, she's not dead, but like, we don't know how to fix her. And she's under some sort of spell. To which Wonder Woman's like, ah, shit, where's Zeke? Jesus. So we go to the Temple of Gaia and we see Hecate has little baby Zeke. And for anyone who isn't aware, I don't know if I've ever actually made this super clear. Zeke is Zeus, like reborn / the spirit of Zeus is inside Zeke or something like that. Like, when gods don't die, they reincarnate. So when we had Hecate grabbing Zeke here, just like, oh, little Zeus, remember the secret passage we used to take when we used to hook up all the time? Yeah, when you seek solace from your bitter marriage with Hera and all that. This is the same escape route we've used. And then she gives her backstory, which is that growing up, she, I guess, was a normal person, but she looked like a monster. She had green skin and a tail and horns. And when she grew up, she met Zeus, and Zeus was like, you're not a monster. You're you're beautiful and all that. And they banged a lot. And he's like, oh, I promise that you will always rule by my side. And then Hera found out and forced Zeus to come back to her like the harpy she is and cast Hecate out. And it's like, yeah, well, now I've got her power, I've got her orbs, and I can bind your heart to mine, restore you to your former glory with the power of Gaia, and we'll be together forever. And then a voice offhand is like, God, you're delusional. And we see it's Hera, who's looking bitch mode. She's looking like a boss bitch. And she's like, look, Zeus may have been a misogynistic whore, but like, even he had standards. If he was telling you you're beautiful, it was only because you got a lot of magic power that he wanted to use. Because, like, look at me. You honestly think he would choose you over me? Pshaw. So she says, give me Zeke, and just like, wait, hold on, how did you even get out of the Tartarus pit? And just like, you underestimated Wonder Woman. It's okay, we literally all do it. It's totally fine. But yeah, right now she's out there hunting you down wherever she thinks you are, and I'm here trying to hop in before that because I want to be able to deal with you personally. And just like, oh, well, if she tries to take Zeus, she's going to find out what kind of monster I really am. And same for you, like exactly what you've done, that you made Zeke ill to begin with. And Hera's like, you could try, but Diana loves me, and we had a whole heart-to-heart last issue, so she'll believe whatever I tell her to believe, and I'll just straight up lie and say I didn't do it, and that you did it. However, Wonder Woman steps into the room, and she says, wait a minute, Hera, what's going on in here? And Hera immediately flips. She's just like, Diana, she's got Zeke. She's trying to kill him. You got to stop her. And she's like, no, she lies. That's all fake. None of that. You know what? The only thing that is standing in her way from ruling all of Olympus like the bitch she is little baby Zeke here. So don't trust her with the baby at all. And immediately Darius is like, no, I love that child. How dare you, Diana? She's feeding on your desire to protect Zeke. You gotta deal with this now. So Diana's like, enough of this. I'm sick of all this secrets and lies. I'm getting the truth. And she throws out her lasso, and it lands around Hera. To which Hera's like, what's up? I thought we had the whole heart-to-heart last issue. Remember that? And just like, no, look, tell me the truth. What's going on now? And Diana's like, look into your heart. The real truth is, I'm trying to save Olympus. Please, we have to get Zeke away from her before it's too late. However, Hecate's already walking up to the Temple of Gaia, putting her baby Zeke under the statue along with the orbs, and just like, nah, enough of this. I'm just doing the thing. So she set her spell, and just like, mighty Gaia, give the power of creation to the universe, let this body be a vessel, yada, yada, yada. And so Diana tries to run in. Gaia shoots out some sort of energy beam from her eyes, again, just the statue, into Hecate, and she's like, yes, the power, fill me with the mighty power. And then Diana tackles her out of the way. The power just starts drilling a hole into the ground, like it's that powerful. And she's like, no, you've ruined everything. And so Hecate starts fighting against Wonder Woman. It's a whole claws out thing. And she's just like, look, I was trying to save Zeke. I could have saved him. I could have brought Zeus back, all this stuff here. And Diana's like, no, you're just trying to claim Olympus for yourself, all that stuff. And it's like, no, I was trying to reclaim my love, and Olympus was just the side effect of that. Like, how dare you? So at that point, she's like, look, you're no different than the rest of Olympus, Diana. You see me only as the monster, and your eyes fool you. And she turns Diana's head over to Hera, who's standing over the baby with glowing eyes, just being like, all right, I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of this, no problem. So Diana runs over to try to stop her. However, she's like, oh, what? Diana, you really thought that a lasso made by Hephaestus, a child of mine, would ever possibly impact me? I can lie under the lasso of truth. How dare you? And she basically says, yeah, I'm the granddaughter of Gaia. All the power here that Gaia's spitting out, it may as well rightfully belong to me. No problem. And Diana goes full God of War mode. The helmet appears. She gets her like sword and shields and all that. And she's like, I am going to let you die here. Final warning, step away from the child. And she's like, oh, what, you wanted the truth? Zeke was already dying. Like, Zeus, whenever he did his thing at the beginning of the New 52, he set a timer. Zeke was never going to be able to survive. Like, Zeus has to come back. This was always the way it was going to be. Zeus just wanted a little fantasy of childhood, and it brought Olympus and all of this to the brink of disaster. And we see, like, yeah, I clearly did not like him when he was just cheating on me constantly, but I hate him as a baby. He's just the worst. So at that point, he's just like, look, in the Tartarus pit, you said that love can be used as a weapon, that it was used for manipulation and deceit. You're literally doing the exact thing. And it's like, yeah, I learned that on your father's side. Zeus taught me how to do that. Zeus knew how to use people. And look at me. I'm the goddess of all women. Like, of course I'm going to go ahead and do whatever I can to get back at my adulterous husband and be able to take over this. And Wonder Woman points out, hey, I'm also a child of Zeus. To which Hera points out, yeah, your mom betrayed her goddess, her patron's god. You think that I don't hold a grudge over that as well? That I wouldn't forgive that? So Hera gets her orbs back. Gaia's laser beam eyes start fizzling out, but all that power is now like embedded in the ground, so it starts cracking with energy and all this stuff. And she's just like, look, you love too easily, Diana. That's why you're so easy to manipulate. And we see that all of Gaia's temple starts crumbling down around them. It starts falling and just being like, well, if you're going to die in here along with baby Zeke, so whatever. It's too late. You can't save either of you. And we see as the temple crumbles down around them, Diana just covers Zeke with her body. And she's like, look, maybe I can't save us both, but it doesn't mean it's not worth fighting for. And she kisses Zeke on the head, says, I'll always be here to protect you. I love you. And the temple crumbles down. And all of a sudden, big flash of energy, big light. And Wonder Woman's like, well, there's no sacrifice too great, but Zeke made sure I didn't have to do that. And we see Zeus has come back. Zeke is no more. And he placed his hand on Wonder Woman and says, look, I thank you for your sacrifice. Time that I get back to my throne. So we go up to Olympus. Some amount of time has passed. We see that Hecate, because of what she did, like, Zeus did come back, even if it wasn't as she intended, by his side. So now he's back in charge. Hera, of course, didn't get what she wanted. She's not in charge of Olympus, but at least things are back to the normal pecking order. We see that Hecate sees all this in a scrying pool, and so she flies away with that big monster worm-looking guy from like 2 issues ago. Because of what the Cyclops did back in issue 50, I think, Wonder Woman has got their freedom, so they're no longer working under Hephaestus. And Zola is now on Themyscira. She's now on Paradise Island, and she is working, quote-unquote, to overcome the grief of losing Zeke. I say that because she's sitting looking very gaunt, just staring at a fire. Doesn't seem to be going well. And the final thing is we see Wonder Woman sitting out on a beach, and she has, I believe, the blanket that Zeke was wrapped in, and she smells it, and she's like, oh, if I breathe deeply, I can still remember him. You were the closest I may have ever come to having a child of my own. I just wish that how much I loved you had been enough. And she lets it go. The end. Boy, that's a downer ending. Literally, nobody gets what they want. Everyone suffers because the gods just have to play their little games. I mean, it's a Greek tragedy. It plays it right. Kudos, but damn, what a downer ending. Yeah, no, I mean, it's solid. It's fine. I do think that this should have some form of like lasting repercussions of like, you know, Wonder Woman not being a believer in the gods, or like, you know, something where her faith is shaken a little bit. But obviously, New 52, going into Rebirth, we don't really do that, or at least I don't think we do that. So yeah, there's options, there's things going on there. But all in all, I think that this one, as an issue, was still very good. A little wordy at times. I'll still give it the 8. It barely squeaks by, but it's more so from the idea of just like all of this. This is one of the few things outside of Batman by Scott Snyder in the New 52 that while this one changed writers, it did still feel like it had maybe not a continuous story, but it was still at least all playing on the same threads at the same times. So many other runs, when they started, they're like, and I don't care about anything that happened before that. This is one where it's like, no, Brian Azzarello set up all this stuff. Let's continue it. Let's see where we can go with it in different aspects and different portions. And I think that's fine. So yeah, 8 for this. Wonder Woman was a decent run throughout. Really, no big deal there. Sinestro, number 23, written by Cullen, Bunn, art by Martin Coccolo, Oscar Bazaldua, and Scott Eaton. So, last issue, Red Lanterns. Look, for the life of me, I can't remember how the Red Lanterns got involved in all this, but they're against the Sinestro Corps because of reasons, and Des Trevius went to take care of them, and wouldn't you know it was a trap. So this issue picks up on New Korgar, and we see, because the planet was originally Necropolis, it ain't so hot to live on. There's like horrible storms and harsh weather, and there's a lack of natural resources, and let's not forget there's an unstable nuclear reactor at the core of the planet, kept only in check by Parallax. So, you know, not great. And we see that Sornik is looking out from inside of a tent at the people who are like still struggling to just even set up. And she's like, should I be in here? I should be out there facing it with my people. Like, what kind of leader stays inside and just takes all the comforts of being warm or whatever? And we see that she's with the spiritual leader. And spiritual leader's like, well, I guess you could say the same about me, but yeah, we're going to be in here. You got to stop second guessing yourself. It's whatever. Trust in yourself. And understand that, like, yeah, we're not going to abandon our people, but our people have to be able to get through this. Like, we can't just baby them and have them not be able to go through this, especially because you are in charge of the police force for the entire universe. Like, as much as you want to be here caring for them, let's be frank, you're not going to be here. You're going to eventually be pulled away to something else that requires you. You can't cover all of space. So then we cut over to the Red Lanterns, who are being led by Dez, who's been converted to one of them. And he's just like, the Rage Mother should prepare to release her people on Sinestro's little pet project. And it's just like, hey, stop with your connivingness and your weirdness or whatever. You're a Red Lantern. Your main thing is rage. Focus on the rage. And it's just like, yeah, well, whatever. So as we see them approaching the planet, the Sinestro Corps intervenes, or at least, like, I don't know, the 6 main ones that we have names for. And it's just like, hey, I'm Sornik. I'm in charge of this crew. Turn around, get away. This is your only chance. And just like, hey, you sent one of your guys to assassinate us. That's not cool. We're entirely that. And she's like, I get it. I understand that it's not cool, but that was before I was in charge, and I'm not responsible for that period. Now I am. I'm sorry about the assassin, but, like, you have one chance to turn around and lead. Got it? And just like, oh, yeah, well, what are you going to do to stop us? What's going on with that? And he's just like, oh, well, I'm Sinestro's daughter. And she gives a little smirk, and Dez is just like, oh, she really is. I see it now. She's coming into her own. So at that point, the Rage Mother's just like, screw this. We're in. We're getting retribution. Let's fight. So a whole big brawl breaks out. We see Dexstar and Atrocitus fighting against Sornik and the other ones from the Sinestro Corps. And then Sinestro's down on the ground, and he's like, oh boy, it's weird to watch these fights going on from the outside. I don't know if my lanterns will be enough to get up there, be able to do it. We see that one of them comes in and is like, Dez, oh, my brother in arms, I will come and I will help you. How you've been turned, I'll put you out of your misery quickly. And then Bleeze comes in and attacks that guy. The Manhunters show up, and they converge on the Rage Mother. They start attacking. And we see that the Rage Mother has brought along with them, I guess, the thing that all the Red Lanterns were working on to begin with, which is a terraformer. And saying, oh, they're attacking me to steal the terraformer. My Red Lanterns, come, help me. And Bleeze is like, shit, this has all been a trap. They didn't care about us. Like, they wanted us to show up here to steal our terraformer. And Sornik's like, yep, well, maybe that was the plan. Good guess, but at that point, it's time for you guys to leave. And we see that she pulls out the big guns of the Sinestro Corps planet Ranks, which shows up and effectively swallows them all whole. Or scares them off. It's unclear. Back down on the planet, we see that they did grab the terraformer. That's a whole thing. And Sornik's like, the Red Lanterns thought you were going to use this as a weapon, Sinestro. That's the whole reason that you baited them. I told them they're wrong, but, like, is that your plan? Were you going to make this thing a weapon? And he's like, I don't know. Do you disagree with me? Do you think that's not a good idea? And he's like, look, if you don't approve, so be it. We'll figure out something else we could do for this. But we could make it into a weapon. It'd be your decision. All I did was get it here. Now it's your choice. For all I care, melt it down, use it for resources, like, up to you. And she looks over at her people and she's like, no, I don't, like, disagree with you. And Sinestro's like, cool. Turns to one of the scientists in Sinestro Corps being like, can you figure out how the machine works? He's like, yeah, it was basically made by a bunch of rage monkeys. Like, yeah, I can figure out how it works. They're all idiots. So it's like, all right, well, what might have been the doom of our planet can be our new resurrection, but you have to call the order, Sornik. And she's like, yep, all right, let's do it. So all the Sinestro Corps go find the Corrigarians. They put up little bubbles around them saying, like, all right, everyone, maximum shields for as long as possible. This is going to be crazy. And Sinestro looks over at Sornik and is just like, I'm not I am still technically a Corrigarian because I don't have Sinestro core powers. I'm going to need you to shield me as well. And she's like, I'll think about it. And so she presses the button. It's just being like, if I don't protect you, what would happen to you? And she's like, I'd be dead. And it's like, fair enough. So she presses the button. All of a sudden, big blue light starts swirling around the planet. It's absolutely massive. And we see Sinestro doesn't seem to be protected by this. He seems to be enveloped in the energy, and he's like, I am Sinestro. I have done so much. I used to be the best lantern of 2 separate corps, but now I am not the man I was. I'm diminished. I am lesser. I am weaker. But I am not afraid because I have done the impossible and I've saved my people from destruction. And we see that the energy starts coalescing into trees and rivers and mountains and stuff like that, effectively turning the planet into a form of paradise. And he's saying, before my faith inevitably breaks, I managed to do all this. So we see that he still is fine. Sornik protected him more or less at the last second. She's just like, you're welcome. And he's like, I genuinely wasn't sure you do it. And she's like, I wasn't sure either. But then I thought maybe your essence or whatever would be tied up in the new planet. And frankly, I didn't want a Sinestro planet. And he's like, let's not throw that idea away, though. So they look over the new paradise and they're like, all right, well, we did it. And Sornik's like, look, you haven't made up for all of the terrible things that you've done, the horrible acts you've committed, but you and I collectively have done great things here. And we take a look at the Corrigarians skipping through their paradise, eating fruits, doing whatever. And Sornik's like, we could have gotten everybody off the planet and just put them on to ranks while we terraformed. Like, why do we have to do it with everyone on planet? That seemed risky. And he's like, they had to be here to see firsthand. They had to see exactly what's going on, so that way we can gain their trust. And she's like, that's the conniving Sinestro I know. That's my dad. So we cut to later on that night. Sinestro's talking to Lissa, and she's like, after everything, after all the things I've seen, everything you've done, it's all still led to this moment. The idea of Armageddon and the dark prophecy and all that sort of stuff. And he's like, all right, after everything we did today with changing and terraforming the planet, did it change your vision? She's like, no, it didn't. And he's like, all right, well, I guess I have to do this then. So he limps off down into the reactor at the core of the planet where he left Parallax. And he's like, I am more than happy to leave this thing here, so be it. But Lissa is talking about a new fear, a true fear that is stirring again. It approaches with Armageddon, and it would destroy everything that I built, including all of New Corrigar here. I can't let that happen without a fight, so maybe I have to once again take on Parallax. And we see Parallax, the fear entity, coming out of the reactor. As Sinestro says, it's a time for me to embrace him once more. The end. Does he do it? Probably. I do. Tune in for Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps. I believe that's the name of the book. Over in Rebirth. Yeah. It's a solid, as an arc for the character, it's a solid arc. I think from beginning to end for Sinestro, this idea of we started with him in self-exile, and then because of things, frankly, out of his control with the Green Lantern Corps, he elevated himself. It's a good showing of the chaos as a ladder sort of thing, where he takes the opportunity, he puts himself up, but then to wrap up the character arc, he is forced to, in his new position of power, sacrifice his power and pass it on to someone else. It's a solid arc. I think the only thing that's a detriment is the fact that, of course, it has to continue. We have to have a story past this where Sinestro comes back and, all that stuff before is now gone. And it's all right, well, maybe we can just write off characters, Maybe they can just be done. Obviously not here. Obviously not Sinestro. Obviously not ever. So yeah, it's good for an issue. I'll say that much. The Red Lantern thing did feel a little bit contrived for just oh no, we brought along this terraformer that could totally terraform your planet into something super cool. Oh no, you took it. Yeah, clearly. So I think I'm still going to say a 7.5. I liked it. It's still got some good moments to it, but it's just shy of that 8 for me. I don't think it's quite especially leaving it off on the cliffhanger of like, will I get parallax again? It's like, maybe he shouldn't even be considering that, you know? This feels like a cliffhanger for cliffhanger's sake. So 7.5, that's Sinestro. Aquaman number 52, written by Dan Abnett, art by Vicente Cifuentes. So, yeah, final issue of the series. And last issue, we had Mera fighting against Deadwater, which had broken out of containment, and Aquaman was fighting against Scavenger because, whatever, Scavenger was Deadwater's former boss. So, yeah, we open up with that fight. And we start with the dialogue, the internal monologue text of sometimes you go down to the deepest part of darkness and you don't come back up. Let's put a pin in that. So we see him fighting against Scavenger down on the ocean floor, and he's like, oh, I swore I'd be ready. I got all this tech, and I built a mech suit. I'm ready to take you down, Aquaman. And Aquaman just grabs him, throws him up to the surface, and just like, sounds to me like you got a guilty conscience getting ready for a fight against me. What's with, you got some secrets you want to tell me about? Anything like that? And he's like, what? No, I figure you don't like me, man. Like, you don't like what I do. You don't like my business. So one way or another, we were eventually going to fight. And this whole time he's throwing punches, doing whatever. And Aquaman's like, all right, tell me about Payne. And he's like, oh, I'll tell you about Payne. He's like, no, the guy, Jonah Payne. Tell me about him. He worked for you. And he's like, what? So then we cut over to the Deadwater fight. We see Mera is trying to use some aquakinesis to like control him, do whatever. But every time she throws a punch or tries to land a hit, he just turns into water. He just forms into that sort of different form. So eventually she's like, okay, if I can't land a punch on you, then I'm going to use my other powers to do this. And she starts using her aquakinesis to dehydrate the guy, which is exactly what they were doing before. That's why he was in containment. So starts dehydrating him and just being like, look, I'm sorry. I know that you are hurt and you are just worried about your son, but you're dangerous and we need you to stay calm while we go out and deal with this. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry, it's so much. And he's like, it's okay. Aquaman's out there, he's dealing with Scavenger right now, confronting Peter Mortimer, you're fine. And he's like, Scavenger, that son of a... And then he immediately turns back into Deadwater. He scratches the pressurized water main, fades into it, and he's gone. He's just immediately out of the system, because of course you can use water to teleport to any other water. So Mera calls up to like the control room, just being like, yeah, he's gone. He's out. Our last bet here is Aquaman. And because I mentioned the Scavenger, I'm willing to bet we know where he's going to appear next. So we go over to the Aquaman fight, and he immediately, Scavenger's like, I don't remember anything about that guy. Like, who cares about him? Like, what's this about? And he's like, look, he turned into a monster. We're calling it Deadwater. Tell me what you know about him. Literally anything. And they're continuing to fight. And he's like, yeah, I knew him. He was a loser, and he was on one of my salvage operations, and now he's dead. And Aquaman's like, oh, you think so, huh? And just like punches Scavenger in the face, rips him out of the mech suit. And he's like, damn it, tell me what I need to know. Just goes full bad cop. So with Scavenger out of the mech suit, he's like, all right, I'm just a normal dude. I'll answer all your questions. So he tells him that it was a really deep run. They were on tiny little submersibles, like itty bitty little things. It was him and two other people. He was the one who took the lead. And when they went down to pick up some scavenge parts or whatever, they encountered some weird, freaky water. And he's like, oh, what kind of water? Like, what was so weird about it? And it's just like, I don't know. It was just, it messed with their electronics and they were stranded. And he also says how he knew this guy had some problems with a kid and needed the money and how he was desperate and all that sort of stuff. So when they went through the water, it's like, yeah, we sent some stuff for analysis. We called it H2.0 because whatever, someone thought it was funny. But on the submersible that they're on, the only chance that they had to escape was that there was one dive tank. And so one person could manage to swim up to the surface. And I'm guessing, without any knowledge of this, that they fought over it, and Payne is the one who ended up winning. So he got out of the submersible, he swam to the surface. However, to do so, he had to pass through the dead water, the H2.0. And whatever happened, he let the other two people die. And Aquaman's like, you didn't want to stage a rescue? You didn't want to go get them? He's like, Look, you may not believe me, but like it did happen too fast for that. Like everything I described happened very, very quickly. So yeah, wasn't enough time. And we never found a body for him, but at that point, like whatever happened to him is whatever happened to him. It's a big ocean. So he's like, well, what did happen to him was he transformed into a giant weird snake monster looking thing, and it reacted to the water about his guilt of leaving two people to die. So that's that. And Aquaman's like, all right, look, do you remember where exactly this was? Like, can we find this H2.0, this strange water? And Scavenger's like, oh, well, that's the funny thing. You see, and then Deadwater pops out of the ocean, grabs hold of, well, he doesn't immediately grab a hold of Scavenger. Aquaman tries to fight him back, and he's like, oh, we might have jogged Deadwater's memory about your involvement in this whole thing. He's like, oh, you son of a bitch. So Aquaman tries to fight against Deadwater. He's immediately swatted back. Scavenger get his jugular torn open. He is not okay. And Aquaman's like, look, hey, I get it now. Jonah, you had to let your crewmates die. Like, you may have killed them in order to get your dye tank. I understand that. But, like, do you remember that? Is that enough to snap you out of it? The guilt you feel there? And we see Deadwater's mouth opens up, showing Jonah's face. He's like, oh, my God, what did I do? I can't believe, what have I done? And Aquaman's like, dude, you good? And then all of a sudden the mouth snaps shut. He lunges after Aquaman, and Aquaman just reactively shoves his trident straight through Deadwater. And this time it connects, and we see Jonah's like blood explodes from his mouth. He's completely dead. And Aquaman's like, oh my God, what just happened here? So he goes and talks to Meredith sometime later, and he's like, yeah, I think that was like a death by cop sort of thing. That was a suicide by cop. Like, he was so guilty over being reminded of what he had to do to survive. I think he wanted me to kill him, and that's why he didn't phase into water or anything like that. And it's like, well, yeah, fair enough. That's it. And they talk about the strange water. They talk about all that sort of stuff there. However, Scavenger's the only one who knew where it was, and he's not dead. They managed to get him into medical, but he is in a deep-ass coma and will take months to get better again. But he's going to be kept under constant surveillance, and the moment he wakes up, they're going to ask him, like, where's the weird water? Tell us where it is. So we cut to Amnesty Bay later on, I guess that night. Mayor's coming out to talk to Aquaman. Aquaman's like, a lot of people died. And what's worse is there's now something in the ocean that I don't know about. And I like to consider myself pretty knowledgeable about water. I like to think that I should know that. But now there's this crazy ass new form of water, and I don't know what it does. And like, it could change the world. And Mara's like, well, so could you. You're Aquaman. And he's like, oh, yeah, fine. And so they share a kiss. It seems all nice, but then remember that line from the very beginning I told you to pin? Well, he says it again. He says, sometimes you go down the deepest part of darkness and you don't come back up. And it gives it this really weird feeling at the end of like, yeah, of course he's upset that people died and all that stuff, but like, he just kissed his wife. Well, not wife, girlfriend, whatever you want to call it. I don't know why we have that super dark line there at the end. I don't know. Maybe it's just to set the mood of like, and things are going to continue on, because I do believe that Dan Abnett does continue his Aquaman run into Rebirth, so we don't really get a changing of the guard, just new storylines. Yeah, no, I mean, it's a fine issue. I don't think it does too much to really wrap it up. It just reveals how exactly he got the powers and then how we killed him. It's perfectly fine. Beyond that, I do think I like it a little bit better than I did some of the other issues. I think the first issue in this arc was probably the best one. I think that was 50. Could be wrong. But you had the issue of like the weird jokiness of the agents was also a thing. So I think this one I'm going to say I'll say it's a 7.5. It's all right. It's good. It's perfectly fine to end off the series on, but obviously it's not the end of Dan Abnett's run. So continuing on, whatever, that's fine as well. Martian Manhunter number 12, written by Rob Williams, art by Ben Oliver. So, final issue of this series, and last issue we had the whole invasion thing was going crazy. Portal opened up. I believe Malaflack Black was dead. Honest to God, this is kind of just like a drawn out sequence, more or less. I can't describe it any bit different than that. So Martian Manhunter, John Jones, and Pearl have both taken over their respective mechs, holding the final survivors of Mars along with that human group that landed there in that plane. We see everyone's trying to make their way out. The portal has been opened by the child of Mars, and John's basically just saying, like, look, I all of this stuff, it's my fault that Mars was killed or whatever like that, but now I can save them. I can bring them back and save them from the certain death or whatever. I was made for this moment. I'm not a weapon. I was meant to save them. So we see that Pearl and John come up to the moon. I think it's Phobos. I could be wrong. And is like, okay, the portal's open. Everything's going to be fine. We're good. And then Pearl calls over to John and is just like, hey, I felt in my mind Mr. Biscuits died, which makes sense because we're all part of you, John Jones. Fair enough. But I also felt Malafalak die. Why would I feel him die? And we see that, you know, his memory flashes back to issue number 1 when he was at the lunar module and he heard something speak to him despite the vacuum of space, and it was a white Martian saying, like, shh, the epiphany is here. And it's only then he realizes that was my voice. Why would it be my voice? That doesn't make any sense. So either way, they're like, whatever, we don't have time to waste, fly into the portal. So they fly into the portal. We cut over to Wessel and Alicia and the Child of Mars, and Wessel is worse for wear. He ain't gonna make it. He's messed up. He's like, I can't believe I'm dying. Like, I was never real to begin with, but like, I'm dying. Child of Mars, if you can do anything, please send Alicia home. She's real. She's a child. She doesn't deserve all this. Please, like, she's a good person and good should be rewarded. And as he ends up passing away, he turns back into the normal form of John Jones, and Alicia comforts him saying, like, yo, you were real, Daryl. You were real. You were John, and now you're dead. So as Child of Mars looks out, just being like, look, Wessel's right. You don't belong here. I should be able to send you back. This Mars is dying, and I am this old Mars, so you need to go. I'll open up a portal. You can get out. And she's about to jump through, and she's like, wait, no, come with me. And he's like, no, I'm literally representative of old Mars. I have to die with it. Like, I gotta go. So, nah, you gotta go. So she jumps through. We then cut to DC, where all of a sudden, the non-magic users, like the government forces and stuff like that, are all able to see Mars. And they're like, Jesus Christ, the planet's about to crash into us. We're all going to die. And everyone looks up and everyone's freaking out. And we see that John is able to feel their fear and all that sort of stuff going on. And he makes a very, sweeping comment, something that could be used metatextually. He's like, oh, look, here's the true invasions. You all spent so long about your little inter-border disputes and country fighting and stuff with colors and races and all that sort of stuff. And now this is happening here. And was it all like, was any of it worth it? Did you actually spend time on anything important? And as John is looking at that, he realizes, like, oh, yes, you all were one people and all that. And he realizes the truth that all the Martians were just one. So we see that, the portals happen. The Child of Mars fades away. Old Mars fades away from the sky as well. So it disappears. Earth seems to be fine. However, the two mechs are still crashing down. They're coming down fast. And the government picks up on this. They're like, it's going to land somewhere in Africa. We scramble the jets, get stuff out there. This thing is like, they're the size of New York. And they are crashing down into our place. Like, this could still straight up destroy the world. And he's like, no, I'll make sure that doesn't happen. He doesn't talk to them, but he's able to pick up on their thoughts. So he's talking to himself, and he's like, no, we're so big, but we'll be able to keep them safe. And he tries to telepathically talk to Pearl to say, hey, shallow your landing, try to save everybody inside of you, the entire cities and all that. But they crash. The impact breaks up the mech into a million pieces, and John comes out of the mech suit. He gets back into his normal form, and he's like, I did it. I brought my people back. He looks up at the sky. He says, thank you. And he's like, the old Mars is gone. Everyone was successful. The plan worked. The refugees are wait a minute, hold on, where are the refugees? And he looks back at the mech impact and he's like, I shapeshifted so many times before, and right now, like, my mind, my emotion has always changed whenever I shapeshift, but like, I think it could break right now, because when he looks back at the wreckage, he does see movement, but it's only the humans that flew through on the plane. That was it. Those were the only ones who were inside the mech. And he looks over and he's like, wait a minute, hold on, what? And his internal monologue is like, you know the truth. Just say it. And he sees a little image of Malaflak and he's like, yeah, the Martians returned to the past along with the old Mars, John, all of them. And we see not only Wessel, Mr. Biscuits, all the ones that we knew were parts of John, but also Malaflak and the White Martians and like all the other ones. And he's like, wait, the Man-Eater, all of you. And he's like, oh God, I finally get it, why you were chasing me. And Malaflak's like, you have been here on Earth for so long, millions of years all alone. You do understand that for thousands of years now, you've already been insane. And we see that one of the other aspects puts it more bluntly. He's like, no, when all of this started, when this happened over the years, you split yourself into far more than just 5 beings. You were so lonely that you created an entire race of Martians here on the planet, all these different aspects. You gave them their own narratives, their own plots, their wants, desires, hatreds, and it was all supposed to lead, and it all created into your epiphany and the invasion and all that. But all of us were just trying to get back to you because you are essentially our God. You're our creator, and you wanted to bring Mars back so badly. We wanted to do that too. And he's like, yeah, all right. So all of them are now gone. The only one that's left is Pearl. And Pearl looks over at John and she's like, no, I'm real. I'm a real person. I'm human. I want to do good. I want to be real. And she starts freaking out. And John's like, I'm so sorry. You don't deserve this, but I'm going to absorb you again. And she doesn't get a say in it. She just screams out, no. He absorbs her again. And he's just like, I'm the last Martian. We never stood a chance. And then out of the dust, out of the dark clouds comes little kid Alicia, who says, no, hey, I was there. I saw all the different sides of you and all the things that you did. You tried to do good. And that's the reason that Mars lets you go. So as the government starts arriving, he flies off. We see Alicia's writing a letter or something to John saying like, you flew off planet. I'm sorry that you're sad. You don't have to be alone. And I hope you'll come back one day. I'd like to be your friend. And I'd like to thank you for saving me. The end. What the hell, man? Okay, so it's important to note that this entire book was not just in his head. To be clear, I think when I first read that, I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. What? Everything was in his head? None of this happened? No. There was another Mars. There was like this whole thing with the portal and ancient Mars and all that sort of stuff. However, he didn't bring back any of the refugees. None of the, like, all the people who were on Ancient Mars, they died with Ancient Mars. They did not come with. When that shift happened, I don't know. The humans did come through. However, it looks like they were de-aged, / they were the exact age that, like, they should have been. So I don't know if that plays into it there. And then all of the earthly aspects, the Man-Eater, Malaflak, all that, all of them were the ones that were made up in John's head. There were never anyone else like that. So, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in. I appreciate it being a heady book. I appreciated having this twist at the end here. This thing where John just realizes it, like, you know, he achieves the goal and then all of a sudden he realizes, well, now I did it, but it didn't do anything. And it's just a tragedy. It's just his own little sad little story. So, yeah, no, there's a lot going on there. In terms of rating, I don't know. It's a solid issue, but yeah, it recontextualizes a lot of the book. So I think I want to say a 7.5. I could be argued to go up to the 8, but this is, to be frank, I don't think I've ever actually mentioned this before in any of the previous issues. I read the first trade of this book, so the first 6 or 7 issues, and I just couldn't get it. I just couldn't get into it. It wasn't sticking for me. Rereading it now, beginning to end, admittedly monthly. I feel that I have a much firmer grasp on it, but now I do want to go back to issue 1 again. And I want to see what recontextualizes with the idea that all of this was just John's, not master plan, but like just aspects of him. None of this was actually real Martians to begin with. Curious at how that first chapter would change, because that first chapter now seems so much different than it did back during the first read through. So I'm going to say this one is a 7.5, but it has the potential to get up to an 8. I think this one kind of flew under the radar, and I'm curious to see if this is something that other people maybe get a little bit more out of on a reread. Robin, Son of Batman, number 12, written by Ray Fawkes, art by Raymond Bachs. So last issue we got the reveal that, oh god, I can't remember his name. Whatever Darga kid this is, Soon Darga, Sal Darga, whatever it is. Turns out he's going to Dinosaur Island because that's where the final thing is. And so Batman, Talia, and Damian are all headed that way. So we end up on Dinosaur Island 6 hours ago. We see that Maya is wrestling with the Darga kid. And he's got, I believe it's him, some sort of electric power or something, like trying to shock her off, but she's not letting go. And eventually she just like headbutts, or he headbutts backwards, knocks her out, and just like, oh, the moon will soon be in position, my lord, and soon the ritual of your father will be ready. And just like, oh yes, of course, our victory is at midnight. So we flash forward 6 hours. Damian and crew arrive, and they find Maya is there, and she's got an arrow in her back, and she is dead. And just like, oh, Surin, that's his name, Surin Darga wants to take over the world. I'll end him. And Talia's like, that's weird. I gave her immunities to the Darga poisons that they usually use, so she shouldn't be dead. To which Maya's like, I'm not dead. I'm messed up, though, and they put a bomb underneath me so that when you flipped me over, thinking that I should be dead, it went off. So I don't know what to do. And Batman's like, I'll disarm it. Damian, you go. You take on. It's going to be a few minutes. And he calls out and he's like, Damian, please be careful. And as Damian's flying off on Goliath, just like, screw being careful. All I'm going to do is be victorious. So they fly over to the volcano where all this is taking place. Bunch of Darga ninjas jump out and they start fighting against them. And I don't recall this bit. That's not to say it didn't happen, but he says, oh, hey, remember, Goliath, the secret of the volcano is that only the blood of the true guardians of the Lazarus Pit will open the way. And they dive straight into the lava, which I guess doesn't affect them, despite the fact that the people who were grabbed onto Goliath, the Darga ninjas, just start burning instantly. But as they make their way down, there's a bubble down at the bottom, and you see all these lava worms are just riding about outside. So Darga's there like, oh, yes, no one can stop me, even you, Al Ghul. This is the last one, the last artifact, the Eye of the Sleeper. Once I put this back where it belongs, the power of Liew and Darga will fully awaken. So immediately he throws a batarang. The fight starts off as best they can. The lava worms come out of the bubble and they run interference for whatever reason. And as it's going on, we see Talia's fighting against some ninjas, trying to get to Damian to help out. Batman and Maya they've taken care of the bomb. Batman's like, all right, you stay here. I'm going to go take care of it. And she's like, yeah, right, I'm staying here. So Surin is about to drop the eye into a pit where it belongs. Damian comes in, grabs it at the last second, and he's just like, dude, screw you. Did you know that the Lazarus heart is underneath this island? That's why the dinosaurs didn't die out here. It's all Lazarus pits, baby. And just like, all right, whatever. You're insane. You just want to get rid of this world and replace it with your own thing. Like, it's messed up. However, lava worm comes in, knocks Damian on his ass, and that gives Surin just enough time for the eye to fall into the pit. So big energy beam shoots out of the volcano. It's a whole big thing. And he's like, yes, I did it. Now to bring the magic of the Liew and Darga, and we will change the planet. We will guide it in our image. And Damian just punches him in the face, being like, you stupid idiot. I'm going to save this world. So all of a sudden, a giant black oak tree starts stemming out from the ground. We see Talia manages to jam her sword into it, so she's riding up as it continues to grow. Maya and Batman catch a lift on Goliath, who gets, well, at least Maya does. Batman, I guess, takes his own route up. And we see that as Surin Darga saying, like, oh, yes, the spirits of the Darga will overwrite creation. We will do it in our own image. Damian points out, you're an idiot. Like, do you even know how the magic works? I've researched your spells. It's all lies. Like, you don't understand what you got yourself into. Your father was just using you. Like, he's going to be the immortal one. You're used as fodder. That's all that's going to happen here. And he's like, no, lies. My father raised me from the dead for this specific moment, all this stuff. So he's about to throw like a fiery fist or something at Damian using some spells. That's where Batman, Maya, everyone comes in to like help save him for just a second. And Damian just gets up and he's like, no, screw this guy. You need to realize you're not just a weapon for conquest. And he does the whole thing where he's like, you and I aren't so different, you know, like I went through the same realization as well. And he basically says like, look, do you want everything to die? Have you really never enjoyed anything at all here? Like, I know that you want to have your father's approval, that you do anything, but if you do this, it's only going to end you. Like, you have to understand, if he had the power to return you from the dead at any given point, why did he only do it now if he really cared about you so much? Why did he only do it right now at the end of the world, huh? And you see the Darga kid's like, well, and he's like, really? Like, your guy knows Lazarus pits. We know those exist. And yet he would not bring you back until this very moment for all these years. And he's like, and he starts like tearing up. And Damian's just like, look, you will be destroyed here by the Lazarus heart. You'll never see anything again. You will never have the opportunity for your dad to be proud of you. Like, can you stop the magic? And he's like, yeah, I can. I just have to stop channeling the power. He's like, good. Choose to be something more than just a weapon. And we see Surin Darga stops channeling the power. The growth of the tree stops. Everything calms down. And Surin turns to Damian. He's just like, you know, no one's ever talked to me like this before. And Damian punches him in the face, knocks him out. And he's like, nah, that guy was an idiot. Like, as much as he needed to talking to, like, he was still an idiot. He never thought for himself. So, Maya looks over and he's just like, well, it seemed like you were identifying with him. You cared about him a little bit. He's like, you can identify with someone and still have to crush them. Like, that doesn't change anything. So Batman looks over at Talia. It's just like, oh, this whole Darga thing, you kept this a threat for all these years. You put Damian at risk. And Talia's like, oh, he was never at risk, blah, blah, blah. And they start fighting with each other. Damian just goes over to Goliath, gives him a pet for saving him. And Maya's watching Damian's parents fight, just being like, hey, Damian, I'm sorry about your mom and dad. That's a lot to go through. And he's like, whatever, they'll stop. One of them will probably be unconscious, but eventually they'll stop. And in the meantime, I've got my family. And we see him, Maya, and Goliath all share a hug. So Talia, sometime later, has got Surin Darga all tied up. He will do interrogations, or she will do interrogations on him. Batman's like, well, hold on, he's a kid. What does that mean? Just like, don't worry, he's not going to die. I just got to make sure he's cut off from his magic so he can't make this happen again. And as for my son, just know that you are an Al Ghul with your ruthlessness and your resourcefulness, and I'm very proud of you. Now I got to talk to your dad alone. And they go off to say whatever. And Maya turns back to Damian, just like, hey, look, you said a lot of stuff when you were fighting Surin Darga about like needing your father's approval and living alone and unloved and all that stuff. Are you okay? Do you need to talk to someone? Damian's like, what? Nah, don't worry about that. That literally doesn't matter at all. But look, Surin Darga might be an idiot, but he also is a kid. And whatever my mom's got planned for him, we can't let that happen. I'm sure my dad will agree. So let's go ahead, and as soon as we get the chance, let's bust him out of here. Or if you want, I can drop you back off on your beach and you can return to your happy life. And she's like, nah, screw that. I'm in. Let's do it. So that's the end of that issue. We get one more to, I guess, epilogue it up or see what Surin Darga is doing on the team. So yeah, I wish I had more to say. I think that this issue is fine for someone who like kind of knows Damian, because like this idea of him like, oh, looking for his father's approval and like I think back to the first few arcs of Batman and Robin before Damian died in that, and Like, that was it. That was the whole story. That was the thing where, like, he was still fighting against his programming as an Al Ghul, but he wanted his father's approval. And so we had to go through this whole thing with that. And it's not like there's no more story to tell there, but I don't think that this one added anything. It's still fine. It's still a good story. It's still whatever it is. I could do without all the Dargo weird nonsense, or at least have a better just baseline explanation of, like, what exactly we're doing. Because just, like, I'm saying this stuff of remaking the universe and all that, that's what I get from it. But if you told me, okay, what's the exact steps that are going to happen to get there? You throw the eyeball in the pit and then all of a sudden magic. Like, sure, whatever. So yeah, there's issues with it, but we still have one more issue, so maybe it'll turn out to be whatever. I'm going to say this one is a 7. It's kind of just where I'm landing. I don't know. Feels right. It's not a bad issue. It's not a great issue. It's just a 7. Poison Ivy, The Cycle of Life and Death, number 5, written by Amy Chu, art by Clay Mann and Steven Segovia. So last issue was kind of like the end of part 1, which is weird for a 6-issue miniseries. But last issue we had, obviously, the 2 sporelings, they were called, being added with a third that was created in a lab that Ivy busted her out of. We see that they're all effectively the same age. They have accelerated aging, as we have already seen. And over the course of 25 weeks, so about half a year, they are now effectively 20s? Maybe 18, give or take, something where it does not feel inappropriate to be able to have mild sexualization of them. So yeah, they age up, and we get that the 2 that Ivy made take the name Rose and Hazel, and then there's a third, which is Thorn, and she was the one who has maybe a little bit more behavioral issues because of her upbringing. But we cut over to all of them just relaxing up on a rooftop, and Ivy has essentially kept them on lockdown for this past 6 months. She is not allowing them to leave the house, anything like that. And they all have the Little Mermaid thing of they want to see the world, they want to explore, they want to do all that stuff. But Ivy's like, nope, that's not allowed. Like, get out of here. So we then see Thorn is messing with a little moth that's flying by, and Ivy's like, stop torturing the insect. And she thinks maybe this is a byproduct of your upbringing, the fact that you were made in a prison and, like, you are able to convert people's flesh into wood, which is messed up. But she convinced Thorn that all that was just a bad dream. All of it is to be forgotten and no big deal. However, Ivy is also looking over who is responsible for the death of, what's her name? Luisa Cruz of the original. And then there were also other deaths after the fact. Eric Grimley and Victor Lee. And just like, all right, so all of them, we still don't know who killed them. And also there was a thing that broke into our home that was like a giant looking monster thing. I don't even know if she's seen that, but for the sake of the audience, we see that. And she's shaken out of her daze by, I'm going to say Hazel, who's like, hey, we have some questions about our biology, Mom. We want to know how our bodies work. And she's like, oh dear, I don't know if I'm ready for this talk. But she's like, yeah, look, what are we? Like, what's going on? He's like, look, you guys are plant-based. You're like me. We're special. There's one other. His name was Alec Hollins. Don't worry about him. He's not going to be part of this plot. But, like, yeah, that's that. And she's like, okay, well, what about all the security? You've got all these, like, man-eating plants around. Is that intruders, like, stopping people from coming in or stopping us from leaving? And right then there's a buzz at the door, and we see that Darshan is still around. He's been visiting. He's been bringing things from the outside world for the sake of the girls, giving them presents. Today, he's brought a karaoke machine. And within 1 hour, all the girls are like, we want to go to a real karaoke bar. We want to do that. And Ivy's like, nope, never, absolutely not. You guys are barely 6 months old. And it's like, oh, we're not that. Technically. But it's like, look, you can't keep us locked up here forever. And Darshan tries to reason with Ivy, like, hey, look, you need to let them get out. You need to let them, we don't know how much longer they even really have. Like, they're the one aging up and all that. Also, you need to come back to the lab at some point, because things are, like, really weird over there. Like, I don't, everyone's just acting like nothing happened, but, like, a lot of stuff happened. So at that point, we cut to night. Midnight hits, and we see that Hazel and Thorne are going to sneak out. Rose is like, where are you guys going? And he's like, oh, we're sneaking out. Are you too much of a goody two-shoes to join in? And she's like, oh, Mom told us not to, but like, okay, I'm in. I want to go out and see what Gotham looks like. So they all head out the door. Ivy has some sort of nightmare about the creature that broke into the house, and immediately she goes around looking. She's like, oh, just verifying you girls are all right, everything okay? But of course they're not there, and she's like, oh, son of a, they disabled my security, they're out on the town, I gotta go get them. So we see the girls, they're making their way through downtown Gotham, and they're like, okay, well, we gotta find a club. What does the club look like? How do we find it? And they just hear some music playing from nearby, and just like, ooh, maybe that one has karaoke, we can check that out. Turns out it's a strip club. It's got like it's called Bang Bang Alley with triple X on it. And just like, well, look, if Mom catches us, if she knows that we're out, then we'll never be able to head out anyway. So let's enjoy ourselves as much as we can. And as they approach the club, they're asked for ID by the bouncer. And they're like, what? No, who cares? We want to go in there. Get out of our way. And so they manipulate a fern that's nearby to just wrap this guy up and choke him out. So yeah, they all get up on stage. They start dancing, not stripping, just dancing because they want to enjoy themselves. And all the people around are like, who are these girls? What the hell's going on here? We see Thorne gets a little bit thirsty. She sees a bar nearby, wants to go get a drink. She's like, oh, can I have some water? And they're just like, no. And we see this other guy come up saying, oh, hey, I can get you something. How about a little something stronger than that? And she's like, oh, yeah, my name's Thorne. And he's like, wow, that's a great stripper name. But what about your real name? He's like, what? She takes a drink, hates the taste of alcohol, and then the guy goes to grab her ass. This does not go over well, because as soon as his hand touches her, she immediately wraps him up in thorns and then turns his hand to wood. And he's like, oh my god, what the hell happened? All the music freezes, people are screeching. And we cut to the police department, where we have the cops. I can never remember their name. Manning and something else. O'Shea. And O'Shea, I guess, has still been trying to like run a little bit of stuff that went on at the lab. And he sees, that Ivy demolished that building 6 months ago. So that's a whole thing. But it's like, look, we just got a call from downtown, something about vines and overgrowing and stuff like that. There's strange looking women down there as well. And O'Shea's like, I thought we weren't supposed to be talking about that, but if it's an ongoing scene, yeah, let's go. I'll drive. So they head down to the Gentlemen's Club, and we see that, yeah, Hazel, Rose, and Thorne have gone crazy. Thorne's like threaded the place with a bunch of huge vines with thorns on every single one of them. And as they enter, she sees them and immediately goes for their guns and starts like grabbing their wrists, starts impaling them essentially. And that's where Ivy comes in and says, girls, stop. They're policemen. You can't do that. And they're like, they had weapons. They were threatening us. It's like, yeah, because you're threatening. That's what you are. So manages to grab all of them, undoes the thorns, make sure the cops aren't killed, and just like, all right, you've done enough damage. Let's get out of here. Hazel blocks the door with her own vines. They throw the cop cars just up out of the streets. Rose applies some pheromones, I guess, to get them to not give chase. And then it's just like, all right, cool, let's bail. And then from the rooftop, we see the monster-looking thing say, Sporlings. So they make their way back home. They're excited over their night and all that. And Ivy slams the door, just like, what the hell were you thinking? And it's just like, oh, we just want to have fun. We're teenagers. We want to do that. And it's like, you're not normal teenagers. And they're like, yeah, we're freaks. And it's like, no, you're not freaks. But like, you got to understand, humans suck. They're the worst. And like, I just need some time to think about how you will be punished. But for right now, you're all grounded. It's just like, how is that any different than any other day? We've always been grounded. So at this point, she conjures up a cage made out of vines and fruits or whatnot and traps them inside of it, just being like, look, it's for your own good. You'll be safer this way. And they're like, oh, you can't do this. You're keeping us prisoner here. And Thorne gets especially angry. She's like, you can't leave out of here. But Ivy goes out onto the balcony. And she's like, look, I need to consult the Green. If anything can help me, it's going to be the Green for parenting tips. Let's see what they can do. And she starts talking to it, and she's like, look, I don't understand. I selected their genes myself, but I don't know what I'm doing. They're unpredictable. They're uncontrollable. And the parliamentary starts to speak, but she's having trouble hearing them. Like there's an interference. And she's like, wait, what do you say there's a disturbance? What are you talking about? Like, I just don't know if I can do this alone. And then all of a sudden there's a loud booming voice that says, "Where are they?" And we see the monster being has attacked Ivy. She's down on the ground. It says, "Where are they, Ivy?" And Ivy remembers the voice. It sounds familiar. Turns out it's Dr. Grimsley. Maybe. She thinks it is. So yeah, I don't know, whatever that was about. I'll be honest, the mystery aspect of it has taken such a bad seat to the Sporlings, which, like, fair, you know? Like, as much as I like the mystery aspect in the beginning of the book, and I was like, oh, okay, we're playing out a murder mystery. Once we introduce the Sporlings, that's such a more interesting concept that, like, yeah, no, screw the mystery. Give me an answer and then focus on the Sporlings more, because that's so much more of, like, a character development thing than anything that a murder mystery could do. So the fact we're getting back to it is a little bit weird even. Like, I don't feel like we even needed this here. Now, it seems like Grimsley was always about the Sporlings, which may imply that, you know, everything is linked together. It's all one big thing, the murder mystery and the Sporlings here. But collectively, I gotta say, like, I don't care who did it, and I don't really care the reason why. I'm assuming it's to get to the Sporlings. So, yeah, sure, cool. Beyond that, fine issue, looks great, really don't have a problem with that. I think I could have used a little bit more characterization for the girls. The only one I got anything different out of is Rose being a bit more innocent, but the other two just kind of, I don't know, they don't have enough personality to them yet. And now that we're on issue 5 of 6, I feel like we definitely should have had a bit more of that. So I probably would have said 8, but I think I'm going to drop it down to a 7.5. It's still great to look at, fun time, solid book, but yeah, it's taken some turns I didn't see me enjoying at the very least. Dr. Fate number 12, written by Paul Levitz, art by Sonny Liew. So last issue we had a whole bunch of stuff, but the big cliffhanger was that Khalid had gotten the text basically saying, hey, you've been absent from school too much. Please meet with the dean to talk about possible repercussions, aka you're going to be expelled. So we pick up this issue and we see, yeah, he's meeting with the dean. His professor's also there. And he's like, I have been through so much over the past couple months, what with everything in the helmet of fate and all that stuff, fighting death itself. But this is by far the most terrifying aspect of my life. And the dean's basically like, look, hey, we don't want to do this. We absolutely don't. But the fact is that there are only 100 openings in our program here. You're taking up one of them. And if you're not going to take this seriously, then we need to be able to give it to someone who will. And he's like, I swear to you, I am taking it seriously. It's just, you know, with my father's injury, all the floods, all that sort of stuff like that. And he's like, look, we appreciate that's overwhelming, but doctors cannot get overwhelmed. And you know, in terms of the flooding and the riots and all that other stuff you're mentioning, Professor, like how many other of your students have missed like this many classes? And she's like, very few. In fact, like none have gotten anywhere close to as many as Mr. Nasser. And she's asked for more specificity on that. And she's like, I can't remember the exact numbers. I'll go grab my laptop real quick. It's just down the hall. So she goes off to do that. And he's like, good, I don't want to have to expel anybody without a full picture. And he's like, I'm sorry, you said expel? Like, is that actually locked in here? Like, please, this means everything to me. It's my destiny, my fate to become a doctor. And the guy stands up. He immediately like grabs his chest and then he falls down to the floor. And Khalid's like, oh, God, no, why did this have to happen? So we see that Khalid's dad is running as like the passenger seat to an ambulance that has been called out for a heart attack or something like that. I don't know if that's directly going to Khalid at the school or whatever, because frankly, it never shows up. But we do see that the dad is like, yeah, my son's been going through a lot. Like I thought that serving as an EMT would help him get into medical college and like remind him of the doctor tradition I had to abandon in coming over to this country. But now he's done so much, and we see, you know, a flashback to the fight against Anubis and all that. Just like, you know, he might not become a doctor after all, but like, that's okay. So we go back to the medical college and, you know, Khalid's unbuttoning the guy's shirt, just being like, oh, God, please don't die on me. And he thinks back to his EMT history, how he got trained by his dad on that stuff. So he starts doing CPR and he talks to the helmet. He's like, what am I supposed to do? And the Fate says, you'll do what you were fated to do. And then all of a sudden he looks up and he sees a little bird with the face of the dean on it flying out the window. And he's like, oh, that's his his soul. Like, it's flying away. But I thought that was just an Egyptian thing. Why would this guy, this clearly white dean, have a soul? Maybe that's just how I see souls. I don't know. So he reaches into his bag, grabs the helmet, and he's like, well, I got to do something. I'm not going to let him die today. So he flies out. He gives chase after the little bird thing. He tries casting a spell around it to like put it in a cage, but it just breaks free. It manages to get out, and he's just like, all right, well, that sucks, but I'm not going to try, like, it's not going to get away from me. I'm going to be able to do this. So he crafts another cage. He's getting ready to use it when all of a sudden he realizes he's flying, like, not in the real world anymore. It's getting a bit more surreal. It's getting a bit more messed up. And he's like, Naboo, what's going on? And he's like, I cannot help you here. He's like, great, thank you. And then all of a sudden he gets zapped. And when he looks around, he's like, what the hell was that? He sees Anubis, and he's like, ah, crap. And Anubis is like, oh, hey, man, I'm glad you came back. I did not swear that I would let you leave here alive twice. So we cut back over to the cat, whatever the hell the name of the cat is, which actually holds, was it Bastet? You know, the god that's in charge of taking care of Khalid, and basically saying like, that freaking idiot, he went into a realm, he went into Anubis's realm, I can't help him anymore, which means this is literally, he has to live or die on his own. He has to be able to do it. So, and if he fails, Anubis will just straight up come back. Like, there's nothing that's going to be stopping him. I'm going to have to choose my next champion more carefully. So we see Khalid fighting against Anubis, and it's just like, oh, look, I already know all your sins. You go against the gods, a.k.a. me. I don't need to weigh you against the feather of truth. I'm just going to condemn you here and now. And he swipes at Khalid with a big axe. I don't know what the name of this weapon is, but Khalid does like start actually bleeding, and he's like, okay, well, not as much healing or protection here. Fair enough. But he's like, wait a minute, hold on. My blood has the Pharaoh's DNA. Like, I'm part of that bloodline. Maybe I can still make that staff that I made last time. Maybe I can use that to fight against him. And so he uses the bloodline power of the pharaohs to fight against Anubis. He frees the dean's soul, hits Ba, and he's just like, well, I'm taking this and I'm out. Bye, Anubis. And he just bails, and he's just like, oh, you son of a bitch, I'll damn you to hell twice in a row. As in, remember, all men come to the god of death. You cannot escape your fate. So we then cut over, if you remember, like 3 issues ago, Khalid saw different like religions aspects, and like he saw an angel, and there was like a Muslim man who also had some sort of powers or anything like that. So either way, we see the angel, all of them are meeting up, and they're talking to Bastet, and they're just like, hey, Bastet, Khalid succeeded. He got the soul and he managed to escape from Anubis. And Bastet's like, yeah, you know, maybe he can succeed on his own. Maybe he doesn't need protection anymore. And the angel's like, maybe you can let this cat go now, and it can, like, you've been possessing its body for so long. It should be in my domain. It should be in the up above area, you know? And he's like, yes, perhaps, fair enough. It is a burden to stay here. And as it starts to fade away with the angel, Bastet's spirit is just like, and what of the boy? Like, what if he still needs further help? The Muslim man has a dog there as well, and just like, yeah, don't worry, we'll keep an eye on Khalid. And Bastet's like, oh, to come to this, that Bastet's person should rely on a dog. The world has changed indeed. So at that point, we then see the ambulance picks up the dean, and he's safe, he's alive, he's going to be fine. And the professor's still there, and just like, look, the dean is lucky you were there and that you had CPR training. Maybe we should include that for all students moving forward. But in order to find out if that'd be useful, you would have to learn to show up, right? And Khalid's like, I mean, and he's like, don't worry, we're not going to, you literally saved the dean's life. I may be tough, but like, I'm not that heartless. We're not going to expel you at that point, but for God's sakes, show up to class. So Khalid's like, all right, well, I mean, that worked out. Good enough, fair. So he's walking down the street. As he does, we see he passes by Shia, and Shia's like, hey, everyone in the college heard how you saved the dean. You're a hero. Fantastic. And don't scare me like that again. And they have a nice little kiss, sharing their relationship, which then we cut over to Aquila, who has come to his house, and his dad is there on the porch talking to her and just being like, look, he's not home, he's busy, he's all that stuff, like, you gotta understand he's got stuff going on. And it seems like the dad's trying to, like, he understands the situation that Khalid's not interested in Aquila, and it's just like, look, I know you want to think of him as more than a friend, but like, that's not where he's at. Maybe you want to be a sister or something, but regardless, he's got stuff going on that, like, he's keeping pretty close to the chest, and I think you just need to be able to respect that. And she's like, oh, there's so much more that we could do together, like, to help the world. If only he would join me, if only he would help me out. And Khalid's dad is like, you have no idea. So final sequence we have is Khalid's mom is baking cookies. She's talking to somebody, saying like, oh, it's been so long since we've been here, since we've hung out. Is peanut butter chocolate chips still your favorite flavor? And she's like, yes, of course. And she's like, oh, look at me. I look so much older after all these years, but you look like you haven't changed a day. Maybe it's good genes. Hell, maybe it's magic. And they share a little laugh. And then Khalid and his dad enter in, and she gives Khalid a hug and says like, oh, hey, by the way, like, everything went well at the school? And she's like, oh, yeah, totally. I'm in. I just need to show up to class. I really got to buckle down now. And he's like, yeah, well, you can do that. I'm proud of you no matter what. And the mom's like, oh, by the way, check who showed up. See who visited. Say hello to your great uncle. He came a long way just to see you. And Khalid's like, oh, hey, it's finally nice to meet you, Uncle Kent. And we see that this uncle, this sister or it's not sister, I think it's great uncle, but regardless, Kent Nelson, the previous Dr. Fate, is here, and they shake hands, and he's like, yeah, hey, I think you may have something that belongs to me. I firmly believe this should have, like, not should have been, but was initially the intended ending of the series, just this little cliffhanger, and then we do a rebirth series that plays into it. But we got a whole nother trade of Dr. Fate after this, so we'll see what it does with Ken Nelson. I mean, that's a big pull there. The issue itself, I mean, it's good, it's fine. It does, again, it feels very epilogue-y. It feels very much of like, let's look at this villain back from the first issue and say this thing of how it will be a recurring threat over and over again throughout the book. With 6 more issues, that's not really a thing anymore, but it's fine. It's a fine enough issue. We send Bastet off as well. So, no, it's a perfectly fine issue. It just feels like a finale. So, I'm going to say, because it's not a finale, strangely enough, it gets extra points because of that, because it just feels like a good, nice feeling issue. It's got that sentimentality down. So I'll say 8. I think it's gotten up there. It may not be my favorite issue of the book so far. I don't know what my average rating on this book honestly is, but I enjoyed it. In terms of reading this one, I just got the most of a kick out of it. Maybe it's the promise of Kent Nelson around the corner. Maybe that's doing something, but it's good. It's a solid issue. Harley Quinn number 28, written by Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by John Timms and Moritat. So last issue we had the Red Tool being more or less formally introduced, and he managed to get Harley to show up to a cathedral where he already has a wedding planned for them. That's the most I can really say about it. So this issue picks up, not there, however, at a briefing from the mayor's office saying how this new guy, Spoonsdale, is going to be the new chief of police. And he's given the press briefing saying like, oh yes, this guy's done so much, blah, blah, blah. Please welcome Harry Souza. However, Spoonsdale has gotten a tip from the limo driver that dropped Harley off at the church saying, hey, I just found that girl. She's at a church here in Brooklyn. You might want to send like everybody. And so before, like as he's being introduced, he turns to the mayor and be like, we got a tip. I got to go jump on this now. And so he runs out and the mayor's like, oh yes, he's already on the case. So he gets the whole SWAT ready to go, tells the mayor like, yep, all right, we got it, we're heading in, should be there in 5 minutes, might be messy, and he's all good to go. And then we cut over to Harley's part where she's storming down the aisle like, Red Tool, you are a dead fool, but tis, as she climbs up there, and he's like, what could be more romantic than a surprise wedding? And then immediately she lunges. She's got a gun, but she ends up kicking him in the face and just like, oh, honey, please, in front of all of our guests. And just like, oh, yeah, speaking of which, who the hell are all these guests? They're all bound and gagged and we're just sitting there. And also, you tattooed my ass. How dare you? That seems to be the thing she's most upset about throughout all this. So she manages to whack his arm with a big mallet or something like that. It breaks his clothing to reveal a robotic arm, and he's like, whoa, hold on, are you a robot? And this is like, no, just a bunch of upgrades and whatever. Anyway, can I, explain myself before you attack? And she's like, yeah, but let me finish. And so she kicks him in the face, ends up knocking him out, and just being like, all right, well, if he's out for a second, who here is going to volunteer some information as to what the hell's going on? And this one guy starts muffling real loud, and she takes the ball gag out of his mouth, and he's like, I swear to God, I have no idea why I'm here. I was just putting a bagel. I was eating a bagel, and then all of a sudden he showed up, and I was bound and gagged, and I was brought here. And just like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. All right, you sure you want to stick with that excuse? Like, why exactly are you here? And he's like, no, I swear I'm innocent. I don't have any idea. It's like, one more chance. And she pulls out a gun, aims at his head. And he's like, I cheated on my wife with her sister, and then we poisoned her to death to collect her on her life insurance. And Harley's like, Jesus, okay, well, I might just shoot you anyway. That's messed up. So all of a sudden the cops arrive outside, and she's like, well, who the hell called the cops? Like, nobody, they got here fast. So he's like, I don't know, maybe the cops forgot that I had to deal with the mayor, because after all, that's still a thing that was ongoing. So if I just tell them that Red Tool kidnapped these people and not me, then everything should be fine. And so she steps outside and she's like, hey, everybody. Of course, she's still holding the gun. So they just unload on this church, and it seems to kill a lot of people. It may not, due to a later scene, but like, there are bullets going into all of these people sitting in the pews. It manages to avoid Harley and Red Tool, though, as he's still unconscious. We then see, what is Red Tool dreaming about while he's unconscious? And it turns out there's a ship, and he's got Harley along with, and she's being very demanding about, like, rubbing suntan lotion on her and getting her, like, free meals and stuff, and how calls her princess instead of anything like dear or whatever. Eventually they crash into an iceberg, and she's like, oh, I'm staying perfectly dry and afloat on this giant door out here in the water that could clearly hold multiple people, but it couldn't possibly hold you, so you just stay there in the freezing water. And he's like, yes, princess. Eventually Aquaman saves her and is just like, oh, hey, I'm gonna go spend some time alone with Aquaman, you have fun. And then something about naming penguins out in the Arctic. Red Tool eventually wakes up to Harley yelling at him, just being like, hey, get up, we got some demolishing to do. And he's like, oh, Jesus, what's happening here? Who'd you piss off, Rambo? So eventually Spoonsdale's like, hey, why the hell is everyone firing at a church? Yeah, she had a gun on her, but she didn't do anything with it. For God's sakes, like, whoever fires the next shot's going off to Newark. So they stop firing, and he's like, look, there are 1,000 reasons why the police would be after me, but I can't think of one right now that would cause this issue. So I don't know what this is all about here. So they get to talking for a second, Red Tool and Harley, and he's just like, look, here's the thing about the tattoo, because they get on that, how he didn't sneak a peek and it was all temporary ink. And Harley's like, well, all right, fair enough, but at the same time, I'm still pissed off that you did this at all. And then she says, oh, by the way, what was with all these people here? And he's like, oh, well, these people were all horrible people that were, like, on my list. They're on the top 20 of the most wanted NYPD. And I went and I got them all up, and I figured we could just beat the crap out of them / kill them all together. It'd be the perfect first thing as a married couple. And he's like, wow, all right, well, we're never going to get out of here with a million cops outside, so maybe we can figure something out here. So she turns to the priest who's wearing, white robes and all that, and says, are you also a bad guy? And he's like, yeah, I've done some bad stuff. And it's just like, yeah, of course you are. You're a priest. So she tells him to strip, ends up taking his robes and using it as a white flag. And then Spoonsdale's like, all right, clearly they want to talk. I'm going in. They're like, Chief, you might not want to do that. And just like, shut up. I'm chief of police. So Harley says, like, hey, there's a bunch of people inside. Are you after me or them? And she's like, we're after you. And it's like, okay, well, did the mayor not tell you that we have a deal? Like, he's not supposed to be coming after me. And he's like, oh, the mayor did not mention that. I will have a word with him. But when they get inside, Harley and Red Tool break it down by saying, like, look, several of them are dead, but all of these people are your top 25 off the NYPD. Like, it's a significant amount of people that are wanted for their crimes, and we just list through a bunch of them. Not necessary. And Spoonsdale's like, okay, what do you want? And we cut to 45 minutes later. Spoonsdale's leading them all out and says, like, yep, we've got anonymous tips here from this masked fellow and this woman who we've concealed the identity of. And she just takes off her mask being like, nope, no need to conceal the identity. It's me. It's Harley Quinn. And I also catch bad guys. If you need anything, here's my number for Harley and her gang of Harleys. And the mayor's watching this on TV like, son of a bitch. God damn it. Oh, Jesus. So, yeah, the Spoonsdale's basically like, look, if you had a deal and you just helped us out significantly here, I will make sure the mayor does not get in your hair as much as I can humanly help it. Also, Red Tool, if you want to like help us out as an outside enforcer, by all means, like, we could use your help. And he's like, yeah, I'll think about it, whatever. So we then cut to the rest of their date, I guess, because things worked out so well. And she chews him out a little bit for the surprise wedding and how that really did not work there. And she's like, look, why are you so into me? You don't know anything about me. And he's like, yeah, I do. She's like, yeah, prove it. And I'm not going to bore you with the details, but like, he lists everything. He's like, here's your origin story. Here's some secret facts about your family that you don't share with anyone. Here's your best friends. Here's your personality. Here's your likes, your dislikes, all this stuff. Somewhere in the middle of all that, we see that they're trying to get like one of the Carney, like, read your fortune sort of things with a electronic fortune teller. Some snooty little kid unplugs the machine and says like, ha, serves you right, freaks. To which Red Tool just throws a hammer at the kid's dad's head and is just like, yep, that'll traumatize you a lot more than a hammer to your own head would. So they go out walking on the beach. He's continuing to say all these things that are like blatant contradictions about her personality, things that shouldn't work together, and yet they're there. And he's like, and that makes you so interesting to me. Like, I'm absolutely smitten. And she's like, all right, well, what do you say we go hop into the water here? And so she strips down to just bra and panties. And he's like, I got robotic bits. They don't do well in salt water, but like, by all means. So at that point, she's like, he's basically saying like, look, if you're not interested in me romantically, that's fine, that's fair, but I do like being around you. Can we at least be friends? And she's like, I don't know. You did a lot of stuff there, and like that apology was fantastic, top tier, but like, if I got your number. If I decide that I want you in my life, I can always give you another call, but for right now, just head off. Like, you did good. You did a good job today. And he's like, all right, fair enough. So he takes off, and she's left with a smile. She's just waiting in the water. Final page. We go back to the roller derby fight where some random ass dude was killed and someone else said, hey, don't you know who that was? He was protected. He's part of like the mob or whatever. And Harley says, whatever. He knew the risk coming here. So we open up at the residence of Dominic Capablo, who's just in a little spa swimming pool with some women. He gets a phone call saying that his nephew, his son, I don't know, son, has been killed at the skate club by Harley Quinn. And he's like, what? Oh, we're going to track her down and we're going to kill her. You get me all the men that we can. And then he says, that ball throwing son of a bitch owes me. Have him enlist her services, then take her out. I don't know what the hell we're talking about there, but regardless, he's upset that his son was killed like 3 issues ago. Yeah. There's more issues of Harley. It keeps going for a little bit more, but like, I don't know. It's like, this book could end at any point, but I do think having this moment here of like going through and listing all the things about Harley, like her entire history and all that stuff, I think if you reworded it slightly differently, and of course had her friends around and all the characters that we built up to this point, I think that could have made a good ending. I think that could have just been a finale. At this point, they can go wherever. I don't know what it's going to be, but I don't know, what started off as a Deadpool just parody turned into something completely different. It's not good. It's not its like impressive thing. It's just there. So I don't know. I didn't hate it, but I still feel like a 6.5. I just don't feel like it quite gets the 7. It's very wordy, and it doesn't feel like a whole lot happens. And like half the plot points are just counteracting problems that they made themselves have, like an issue ago. Like didn't the mayor say we had a deal? No. Well, now you have a deal. We already had a deal. Why are we doing another deal? Yeah, 6.5. I think that's where I'm at. And that's it. That's all the comics that DC Comics put out on this May 18th, 2016. And next week is a big one. Not the biggest one. I mean, we're going to have bigger episodes, literally speaking. Longer episodes, bigger episodes. You know the drill. But it's the big one metaphorically because it's episode 247, a.k.a. May 25th, 2016, which if you want to punch that into your little Google box followed by the words DC Comics, it's going to tell you DC Universe Rebirth #1 came out that week. I will not get into it now. Suffice to say, I will not be covering it on this show. It is distinctly separate from the New 52 and therefore will not be talked about. However, what we will talk about is all the books that still technically are New 52 that came out that week. We had a whole week's worth of books on top of that coming out. So just to go through that list real quick, we had 14 comics, and they are, in roughly alphabetical order, Batgirl, Cyborg, Deathstroke, The Flash, Grayson, Justice League 3001, Omega Men, Secret Six, Suicide Squad Most Wanted, the anthology book, Superman, Lois and Clark, Teen Titans, and We Are Robin, and one I skipped over there in the middle, Justice League #50, which is the wrap-up to Darkseid War, probably the biggest book that week, not counting DC Universe Rebirth #1. And yeah, definitely the last thing I'm going to cover in part of the main show. Now, again, I will say this next week, but for anybody who happens to be sticking around at this point here, for the love of God, I'm going to episode 250. There are more comics to talk about. Don't unsubscribe. For the love of God, I need you here. And why do I need you here? Because, well, I get lonely. So if you have any comments on any of the comics I'm going to be talking about next week, this week, any week at all, go ahead and put them down in the comment section down beneath this video. But speaking of the description, if you are not listening to the video version, just kind of minimized and off to the side, you may be on the audio feed. And for that, if you want to leave a comment, you can visit our subreddit or our Discord or our Patreon. There are multiple places you can go, but just go to the Discord because I'm pretty sure we don't even use those other ones. I mean, yeah, we use the Patreon, but like, I don't see any money from it, so I don't give a shit. I love I can say that because the guy who runs the Patreon is never gonna watch this. Like, not a chance. Oh boy. So yeah, no, by all means, go check those out. That's all gonna be there long after I'm gone. So yeah, I think that's it. I will see you next week for what I'm sure is going to be one of the more emotional episodes that I've done. Forgive me if it runs a bit long in the intro. I just feel the need to talk about stuff. So yeah, that's going to do it. Thank you very much for watching, listening, however it is you consume this podcast. Be sure to tune in next time. And always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.